Good afternoon, my name is Kirsty Dignam and I'm here to look at the weekly energies with today's Monday's musings on the 7th of April 2025. A lot of shifts and a lot of changes occurring, particularly the last week and into this weekend, depending on our reaction to very old, very primal, deep-seated wounds within us. I'm being made acutely aware of many energies that want to suggest that we're on track. Many conversations that want to keep almost pointing things out that everything is lining up. But also knowing in my core that if I don't acknowledge where I am before I receive them, there is a potential to repeat the actual wounds rather than what it is we can gain from them. So let's break it down. As always, when anything becomes overwhelming, I've just come back from a beautiful walk before doing this video, knowing that I needed to get myself prepared first by breaking down those steps, okay? By being aware with where we're at initially. So let's do so. 7th of April. Yes, Mercury is finally not going retrograde. But obviously that's going to take some time. The planets don't move back, but their motion changes, their direction in not where they're going, but how they navigate things takes a different angle. That's why we were given the opportunity to reflect, to go within, to see if there's other alternative routes, even if it may seem to be the same path, that help us to look at things differently. And that's all changing from today onwards. However, initially we're going to feel that backwards forwards motion. We're going to feel almost ready to charge, but not quite being certain where to, because Venus isn't on board yet. Our heart isn't on board yet. And what that means is collectively we have a potential to act from a shadow aspect within the heart. This week, give time for things to settle. There have been some very acute awarenesses since the beginning of the eclipse season. Some very acute awarenesses which have caused understandable pain. And it can be very tempting to act out on that pain. That being said, the level we are able to go into the discomfort will determine the different ways of navigating things. So it's not about ignoring the pain. It's not about getting lost in it, but really, really learning what's underneath this all. And for many, that will be a yearning for a deeper connection, a yearning for a deeper respect in relationships, be it friends, family, work, ourselves, the earth. Because underneath it all is a necessary acknowledgement of ourselves. Obviously, that starts externally, but really it's about internally, how we see ourselves. Which brings me on to something really beautiful. I've just been for a walk, dance, to get things ready, as I say, within me first. When I do so, I take my phone with me, because it has my music on, and I listen to music and I flap around chucking things left, right and centre on my path, moving with how I feel. Coming back to my home, I've just had a knock at the door by a wonderful man who works for, I think it was called Open Reach, which is a communication company, Open Reach. to give me my driving license and my bank card because on my path I have thrown them out. They're kept in my phone and I've thrown them out of my phone. This feels really, really important to me, knowing that on the journey, and I really sense that as well, on the journey, the communication, trying to spread myself and reach others is a beautiful thing. However, the communication is suggesting that I've lost my identity along the way, and in doing so lost my abundance, my money, my, you know, all those needs being met, all the things that I'm banking and storing. And there's a lot of energy rising in regards to what we give and what we get back. And that is the tip of the iceberg. That really, really is. It's not that it's not important. It is. It's a gateway. It's an invitation to really see what's underneath, to look at where we may have lost parts of our own grounding, our own rooting, and our own identity. By trying to be something to everybody, by trying to, I don't want to say stay in our own lanes, but we are the people we are for a reason. A lot of my background has benefited me with the ability to talk like a sailor, to take things on the chin, to build resistance and resilience, to keep things real. There have been times in my life when I've tried to stray away from that and be something that I'm not, or be only a certain amount of that. Now, this is going to be on an individual level. I'm not suggesting you share things that you're uncomfortable with. I'm not suggesting you be more vulnerable than the space you are being held in, because that is what's actually causing the trauma for a lot of people. To be more vulnerable in energies that are unable to hold that space can leave us feeling really, really unsafe. But it is an opportunity to look at where we have felt held before, where we have felt nurtured, and a little sneaky insight. It's going to be based around our upbringing. It's going to be based around what we have roots in. Acknowledging where we may have pushed some of that to one side in order to reach as many different people as we can and be as relevant as we can. What has been the cost? Why? Because again, underneath it, there is a soul yearning for deeper connection. Yes to people, yes to the earth, yes to our purpose, our job, but to who we are. It's not about getting rid of those parts. And that's the thing, when we do a lot of healing, whether it's ancestral or whatever it may be, there's this belief we need to get rid of those parts. So a lot of my upbringing was in very poor consciousness. And, you know, it's one thing to look at things and say it's 3D and it's this, that, but it was true as well. It's not about me pushing that to one side, but bringing forth those gifts. So we coped with ifits for meals. We, you know, helped each other. We made do, but we also trusted our own ability to survive. Bringing forth the gifts that you have gained from the wounds that you've tried to get rid of or heal this week are going to be key. The answer to it really is to keep an open heart, but that may not be easy. So just acknowledging you're doing the best that you can in any moment, and whatever action you take is ultimately going to bring that resolution anyway. The difference is going to be the more open you can be, the less pain it's going to cause you. Even though that kind of feels like a backwards way of looking at things, things can be really painful, so we don't want to be in it. It's kind of like the, you know, when you do things to make things comfortable in one moment, but long term, thank you. Yeah. There is confusion. There is a little bit of trying to understand it too much, trying to give it too many metaphors. The work that we put in, the groundwork we put in, is what's actually going to make the long-term differences. So if we are causing or reacting from a pain long term, it's going to take a while to really get the benefit of that. But if we can sit with the pain and discomfort rather than initiating a response to it, long term, yeah, the changes are going to be more sustainable because we're going to be more rooted in everything that we feel. Now, the other reason I share that is I've noticed today it's World Health Day, but also Beaver Day, International Beaver Day. And again, it's that information coming in trying to point at the same things. So what is it trying to point at? Well, when I think of the symbolism of the beaver, no pun intended, I mean the animal version, they work really well in groups. Okay, they work really well on the ground level, getting things set in place to initiate a safe environment that will last them long term. They build their homes in less than desirable conditions, but they do so by navigating the flow. You know, when you think about a beaver building a dam, they navigate the flow of emotions, they navigate the flow of water, they navigate their needs. They ensure that they flow in a way that works for them, but also the environment. Beavers are very family orientated animals, and they are very resilient survivors because they draw upon everything that they have gained. They draw upon their environment. They draw upon what we would normally see as a disadvantage. The other thing with it being World Health Day, it's in anniversary of the World Health Organization, which I think was 1948, something like that. Don't quote me on that. I know it was roughly around the same time as the NHS, but don't quote me on the date. This year, I do believe it's around new beginnings, but also sustainable changes by focusing on maternal health and newborn health. Now, you might say, well, I'm not having children, Kirsty. How is that relevant to me? Or I'm not a woman that is deciding to go down that way for whatever reason. I'm not a woman. That's not relevant to me. How we care for anything that is being created, be that the future, a child, our hopes, our dreams, how we care for that dictates the outcome. And the best way to care for the life that is being created, the future that is being created, is to care for whatever is creating it. This isn't woohoo, this is common sense. If you want something to grow in your garden, you tend to the soil. You take care of that part of land. If you want something to grow in your body, whether that's a child, whether that's a relationship, whether that's a job, whether that's whatever it is you're trying to create, you care for yourself as the creator. This week, we're really going to be given the opportunity. I was going to say be shown, but we're not going to be shown. We're going to be, because there's no point showing the same information over and over and over if we don't feel into the opportunity there, which is to reflect. We are still in that reflective period. As we go into the full moon, I think it's in Libra, there's an opportunity here to look at what brings us balance, to be our own justice, to call ourselves out, to look at any particular repetitive reactions to a scenario. I know myself, this whole week, actually last fortnight, has been quite knee-jerk in its energy, quite trickster-like actually, to see how I would react. And I have reacted the same way, but I've gone through and past that also. So this week, looking at the potential to, yes, use our normal reactions as an invitation. It's not about getting rid of them as such, feeling into them, taking them further, exploring them further. This happened. That was my reaction. That means this. What am I going to do about it? So it's the medicine wheel, okay? It's the completion. This year is all about completion. And as we go into the latter half, not there yet, but as we go into the latter half, all these things that we've discovered, all these different things are all pointing at one answer, which is unique to us all, but it will be about an area that needs completion if there's going to be any change. And it will be quite deep-seated in regards to who we are, in regards to how we see abundance, whether that's life, relationships, money, our connection, our path, and whether or not we've strayed from that and the impact that that's had, being aware of it. But what are we going to do about it? We have time, but it is an opportunity to reflect on, did that work before? What did work before? What can we take forward? What have we tried to do over and over and over, and it just hasn't changed anything? As the creator of our future, as the initiator of what we're trying to bring through, it's time to get honest with what it is we need in order to do so. And that may be relationships that are more in depth, more connected, purposes that bring more fulfillment, recognition that the more we grow, the more we are going to want honoring how that feels. Does it have to keep coming through as a wound first? Okay, is there anything else to add before? I actually had to put honey in my drink today because I felt like I'd had a shock to the system. Being aware of that, being aware of how intense things have been. When I picked up my cup, I wanted to raise a glass, celebrate. You know, we can get very caught up in, I've done that before, this is how I've reacted before, I need to do something different. One of the best ways to do anything different is to celebrate. Celebrate what you have done. Mark it with a special occasion. Give yourself, you know, a rites of passage, a party, a whatever it may be. Even, oh, I've gone through this, I've reacted the same way, but I've noticed that I've reacted the same way. Hey, chins up. Celebrate the changes in order to see the completions that have already occurred. Try not to get too caught up in the, obviously Libra is an air sign, and even that I can feel myself going down trying to explain things and understand things. Try not to get too caught up in that. Remember the beaver. Remember the energy of not blocking the flow. It's not about blocking the emotions, but just directing them towards a more sustainable, useful outcome this week. By looking after yourself. By recognizing your beauty as the manifester of whatever it is you're trying to create. By really acknowledging whether or not you're in line with that and taking responsibility for it. There's been many situations I've put myself in the last few weekends that have been repeating the same scenario, but ultimately I have to decide not to put myself in those situations. One of the big things that came up this week as well, and I will share this because I've been talking about flow, but this is individual for everybody. Okay, so this isn't this is what I suggest you do, but just feeling into what is going on for you in regards to what you share and the reactions that you get. One of the things I felt into the last few weeks is, for me, it's never been about holding back what I share, in case you didn't know. And I'm fully aware that for some that can be an oversharing. However, for me, it's very much about being with what I feel and sharing that and acknowledging those that can hold space for me and those that can't. What I didn't realize, or to the depth of what I didn't realize this week, was how much the reaction of others can concern me, and how aware I am subconsciously of that and the impact that that could potentially have on what I share. I can either hold back or like really just because of being nervous of other people's reactions. This week, looking at, I can see the analogy of the beavers with the dam, looking at what it is you are using to direct your emotional flow. Thank you. What is it you are using to direct your emotional flow in regards to your own creative connection and what you share? And that's why I'm getting really warm around my throat, and it's beautiful. There's a lovely healing energy coming in, not just for the throat and the voice, but remembering that the throat is also connected to the vagina in the female, the beaver. Okay, so let's go there. All those kind of energies, recognizing that what we say, how we share, whether it's verbal or, you know, through our body language or through what we're willing to give and not give, affects our connection to the earth. It affects our abundant relationship. I'm not saying give away everything, unless that's what you want to do. What I am suggesting is looking at why you may feel you can't, where that comes from, and the impact that that's having on you and your connection to who you are, your identity. I'm an oversharer. I've always been an oversharer. I don't expect that of anybody else, but I have got caught up in how that may make others feel. Looking at what you're trying to get by sharing. We all share, and we do so in a beautiful way, and we do so for the most part from our heart. We also do so to receive, and that's a normal, natural part of it. The question is this week, are you receiving what it is you are expecting? Where do those expectations come from? How has that changed the path that you find yourself on? How and what are you using to validate, to control, to direct your creative, emotional connection? Okay, anything else? It feels like we could go over it. It feels like we could go over it, and we may get that need for it because, as I say, there's honey in my tea. There's a need to be heard. There's a need to be seen, to be felt, to be validated, to be held. There has been a lot of shocks to the system. It's not about the shocks. The last few weeks, it may feel like it, but it isn't. These are deeper shocks. And what's happening is every time that response is being brought up to the surface, so is every other time that it happened. And it's causing quite a shock to the system. So being gentle with yourself this week. I see a lot of people running around doing things, creating things. And whilst that's beautiful, and I'm mindful not to have an opinion on what people do. If we go by the seasons that we find ourselves, particularly in the UK, yes, we are in spring. We are in a time of rebirth and renewal. A lot of people are acting as if we're in Beltane, as if those energies are equal. You know, what we conceive and what we are creating are equal. And they're not quite there yet because there's older stories that are being renewed, that are being reborn. Not so that we can get rid of them, but so that we can take them forward in a stronger, more balanced energy in time for Beltane, which is May. Anything else? Just taking care of ourselves this week. Trusting, softening, being open to receive what it is we want. A lot of times we can say, I haven't had X, Y, and Z from somebody. How open are we to that? How do we feel about wanting that? Are we soft enough in ourselves to acknowledge the depth that we're trying to connect to internally? Right, energies this week. One of the big aspects of the shock is recognizing we may not be who we thought we were. We may not be who we've had to be for whatever reason. And that comes with a shock, yes, but also a remembrance, and it's allowing time to integrate that. So, energies this week, nearly 22 minutes. How to best navigate them. I'm feeling so lovely and warm, and like I say, I chose to, okay, own up, recognize and acknowledge, for whatever reason, what you have chosen. The responsibility is the gateway into accepting things from a less wounded perspective and a more empowering energy. Now, I'm not suggesting for one moment those in abusive situations have put themselves there. And I won't suggest that, regardless what I'm receiving. What I'm suggesting is the things that you do have control over, particularly the more repetitive cycles you may find yourself in, acknowledging first and foremost that's been a choice. Sitting with that, feeling into why you may have put yourself in those positions. If you are going to gain any kind of power back that's yours, that's always been yours, it takes truth and honesty. I have done this because of X, Y, and Z. This has been the impact. This is what I've gained and healed. Do a pros and cons list if you must get logical and rational with it. But then what? How can I take this forward? Do I take this forward? And that may be people, situations, work, home. Underneath it, we do have the wheel, of course. And you can see, this is the Light Seers deck. You can see in by Chris Ann Donnelly. And you can see in this card, she has the light, she has the dark, she knows she's both of them. She knows any chance, any roll of the dice is actually down to her, that it's how she balances the changes beneath her. It's how she balances the twists and turns of life, of the path that she walks, that determines what changes then come through as a result. Being proud of that as well. So often oh gosh, I've done that again. Not acknowledging one of my, I did my own medicine wheel treatment again, because I do 4 sessions and I'm on my 2nd session, and I do it for myself as well this week. And one of the steps forward is to actually every day write down what has changed. because something changes. You know, we can see a leaf that has changed. We can behave in a different way and be more consciously aware of it, and that has changed. Or there's always change in every moment. And it's really important this week to acknowledge the smaller steps in between the larger journey if we're going to get any harmony or balance, rather than get caught up in how many times something has already happened, or rather than worry too much about how things may not shift in the future. Recognizing the individual steps we have taken to get to this point have been just as important in the creative process. Only then will we acknowledge what actually has shifted. It's a little bit like the stages of labor, right? Some people do, but most often than not, you don't wake up at 10 centimeters. You go through the stages, and that is what is occurring. So acknowledging where you truly are, determining what stage of your creation are you in, and that's really going to help you decide what it is you now need. What do I mean by that? Are you at the early stages? Have you just started to feel a discomfort in what is occurring around you? Or have you really got to the point of no return and you know that actually something has to shift? Does that make a huge difference to what it is you need? In regards to labor, throughout the whole process, what you need is a safe environment and to feel loved and nurtured. So not really. So the only benefit, I guess, that you would get by acknowledging where you are, what stage you're at, is to not push yourself beyond whether or not you're ready. There's no point pushing at 2 centimeters, you know. So by acknowledging where you are, there's a real potential of compassion this week in the times of uncertainty, knowing that what has been put in place is coming, looking at where you may need to prepare yourself to receive it. Going back to that new beginnings with the World Health Day, new beginnings, and let me just look up what it actually is, because I did look it up just now. World Health Day theme: healthy beginnings and hopeful futures. Okay, so yeah, have the 8 of Cups at the bottom of the pack. Healthy beginnings and hopeful futures demand that we walk away from things that haven't been healthy, that don't bring us hope. And that is really where we're at. Rather than filling those gaps with things we may be uncertain of, which ultimately have an underlying essence in previous wounds, looking at what we're walking away from. How can we really bring in a healthy beginning here? How can we be hopeful for our future? Does that reside in all the things that are now no longer relevant? Of course not. Taking time for that. Looking at the path that you're on, looking at what you may have left behind or what you may need to. Energies this week and how to best navigate them. I'm now seeing the other side of the man that dropped off my card, how he's working for Openreach, and with my own driving license and my own bank card. You know, I can also take on board maybe looking at how I can reach a more vast audience in regards to communication. So acknowledging with the Libra full moon that yes, there's going to be 2 sides. There's always 2 sides to everything. Seeing things from both angles. Finding a middle ground. Energies this week and how to best navigate them. 3 of Cups. Celebration of what has changed, but also being aware that that isn't going to be enough to sustain us, you know, that we're going to want to create more. Finding energies that can help us do that this week is going to be key. There are big shifts occurring. It may not feel like it, particularly as we find ourselves repeating some very familiar situations, but those big shifts come in how we react to them, how we see them, what we gain from them, what are we going to create from them. What has shifted? How can we celebrate that? So, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Overall, well, I'm not going to lie, I feel tired. When I look at this week, I feel, resigned. That's how I feel. Interesting phrase of words, but that is how I feel. I'm not going to get into politics or anything like that, but I do feel a resignation. and acceptance here this week. I watched Casualty with my husband yesterday. He watches it and catch up. And without giving away too much, there's a nurse on there that's a clinical lead nurse that's trying to budget, but also save the NHS money, but also get what the staff needs. And obviously underneath it all, there comes a point where this clinical lead nurse has to acknowledge that it isn't going to happen, to surrender, to resign to that in order to receive the help that is required. It's not a surrender as such this week. There's a different type of energy here. It's more a resignation. It's more, I'm not going to do this anymore. I can't do this anymore. There needs to be a different way. The other thing I felt this week, halfway through the week, we have the Ace of Wands, and it feels like the Ace of Wands from last week. It feels like the initiation of how we see things, ourselves included, but anything that came to light last week, come midweek, we're going to really understand what that was all about. We're going to get that clarity either side. We have the Chariot and Justice card. We're going to, I think that's just in time as we lead into the full moon in Libra. We're going to get that clarity that's needed to move forward. So anything that was coming to light last week, acknowledging that was just a spark, that this week that may take on a whole other perspective that's going to help us move forward with that in a balanced, harmonized way. Also, the sheer fact that I'm looking at the Ace of Wands in the middle and looking either side, that feels very poignant also. Whatever we're being made aware of this week, look at both angles. Play devil's advocate. The devil card actually isn't in here, but play devil's advocate, because what I hear is it's always kind of underneath. Underneath it all this week is an opportunity to see where we're holding ourselves back. And pretty much that's life, right? To ensure that we're living to our greatest potential. In order to do that, we are always encouraged to see where we can grow, where we are restricting ourselves, particularly the light that we bring. So playing devil's advocate with yourself this week. This is what happened. This is what it means. Does it though? Or it could mean this, or it could mean this, or it could mean this. Really, and then what happens is we really expand how we see not only the situation, but ourselves. Now, I'm not suggesting that you continually go into a mental loop. Watch out for that midweek. This week, but if you've tried to do things and it hasn't shifted, continuing to try and do it with the same energy isn't going to get a different response. So allowing yourself a little bit of expansion this week in regards to how you see what is actually occurring around you, and it's that that's going to shift and bring the balance. And it may not always be pleasant. It may not always be comfortable. Really trying to watch. The only reason it's not pleasant or not comfortable is because of our expectation. The only reason we find things personal, particularly in relationships, is because we expected something that we didn't get. Okay, I expected this person to love me forever and they don't, and that's painful. It's the expectation. So really looking at how you see things, what it is you want, your expectation about it, and in turn, bringing that back. What does that mean about me? You know, I expected them to behave this way if I behaved a certain way, which means perhaps I believe if I behave well, then I'll be rewarded. Where does that come from? Okay, really going deeper into the connection that's available, because it's that that's going to bring any equality in a lot more than we realise. Okay, and that goes back to the resignation energy as well. I'm not going to get into politics, but yeah, even looking at that, looking at where we may be avoiding politics and why, or what politics we may have got caught up in and why. Let's bring it back to this week, shall we? Because my throat feels quite sore already. It feels as if we've been trying to express something for so long that actually if we carry on going over and over in it, all we're doing is making our throat sore. Going back to the link between the throat and the womb space and the vagina and the cervix, you know, if we continue to go over and over and over something without changing anything, yes, that leaves us with a sore throat, but that can also leave us with quite a restricted, raw creative center as well, and a soreness in how we connect in our root chakra. So being mindful of that. Sometimes there comes a point where you just say, I'm just resigned to this is how it's going to be. or I'm resigned to this, I'm not getting involved in this. Okay. So overall, despite shuffling the cards, or maybe because of shuffling the cards, this week there's a temptation to you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. If I do this, there's going to be big changes. If I don't do this, there's going to be big changes. That's because change is a constant. Okay, stepping back from that a little bit, I feel like a gritting of the teeth almost, like, oh, I've tried to avoid this. Some things are unavoidable. I've shuffled the cards and the wheel has still come out, because there are changes afoot that are happening, and it's about us finding our balance, recognizing it's not about luck, it's not about chance, it's about change. There are going to be shadow aspects, light aspects that are all going to encourage us to find balance and harmony in the energy of change. Seek the completion that will help us do that, because we are being prepared. I've never known a year that has been so much about the following year, but that makes sense because it's the 9 year into the 10. It's completion into change. There is a difference, but it's a very slight difference, and really use that this week. It may not feel as if you've done much to shift things, but it doesn't have to be a big change. It's about completion. It's very subtle shifts this week. Give yourself an opportunity to connect to them, to celebrate them, to really sense into them. The more comfortable we can be with often the unseen changes, the more we get to see what we are creating and manifesting. You know, if we all got caught up about being 10 centimeters in labor and that was all it was about, the rest of it would be pretty boring and quite frustrating. But every stage is important. And this week, the changes are there. How ready are we for them? How present are we in each and every one of them? You often see videos, don't you, of people experiencing the pain of childbirth, or people talking about the pain of childbirth in a very negative manner. Now, I'm not going to say whether it's painful or not. Pain is an individual thing, and that feels important. We all have our own process. However, for the most part, when you're in labour, you get a chance to build up. We have had a chance to build up to a lot of the shifts that are occurring. It may not feel like it, but we have. Okay, so the more we can sense into those subtle energies, our body in particular, where our emotional flow is going, the more we can get what we need, because the body knows what it needs, but it needs to have that space to be heard. On the Monday, as you can see, try not to get too caught up in explaining the emotions or what is going on. We have the moon card. One of the biggest illusions can be, this is where I am, this is what's happening, this is why it happened, da 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 da. Don't get weighed down by the collective subconscious energy that is going on. Keep your eye focused on the change, on the cycles, on the energy that gives you a more gravitational pull. What calls you to? For me today, it was to go out. There's a pigeon on the roof, just walking along with a stick. For me today, it was about going outside first. That called me more than this video. Acknowledging that they're not needs. They're not, oh, that would be nice. They are essential. Remember, those new beginnings and a hopeful future demand that we take care of the vessel that's going to create them. What is essential for you? What is calling you out of whatever it is you feel submerged under? Is there anything else there? And even that is a temptation, right? To feel into anything else, but using that as an invitation to seek, to reflect, to go within, and to be okay if there isn't. To be okay if those waters are still. To be okay with any peace that comes up about a situation. To recognize peace for permission to act. On the Tuesday, that brings through, we have a lot of major arcanas, by the way. On the Tuesday, and that makes me feel like, oh no, more, I just want to rush through it. Particularly on the Tuesday. Take time. Take time to see what is in front of you. This card, she's under the water. Come the Tuesday, we're above it. So the Monday we can feel quite weighed down with our emotions. Come the Tuesday, we get a much clearer perspective by looking at things differently. And that may be that we want to suddenly rush forward. This is what I need to do. I need to do X, Y, and Z. Just allow things to move. Just allow things to shift. Just go with your own flow here. You have time. On the Wednesday is the movement. On the Wednesday, and it may not be in the way that we expect. Although I wanted to say that because that's classic for the Chariot. So looking out for the things that we say because that's what we've read or what's familiar. In my gut, there's an excitement there that actually it was exactly what we expected. Actually, if we're honest and positive as well, if we're honest, come the Wednesday, it was exactly what we've been working towards. It was exactly what we were trying to not control, but navigate. That's the difference, controlling and navigating. Are we allowing what we know to control the situation? Chariot card, we're not moving forward, we'll move forward, but not in the way we expect. Or are we allowing what we know to navigate us to open up and explore more? That's what it normally means, but what does this actually mean? Well, Wednesday, what I feel is excitement. Wednesday, what I feel is a deep, it's right down in the root. Gosh, when I allow that to happen, there's a real bearing down actually in the root chakra Wednesday, which is opening the heart. Come the Wednesday, there is a truth there, a discernment there of this is what I expected. This is, dare I say it, what I needed in order to know where I was going. On the Thursday, that brings forth our first minor arcana, which is the Ace of Wands. And this brings forth the energy of last week. Any insights last week? I want to look at the time, which is interesting. Any insights last week? Again, there's that feeling of having to be rushed Tuesday and Thursday. Looking at the impact that that's had. Last week, it was all very much about how we get addicted to the rush. This week, it feels like it's about looking at the impact that that's had on how we see what we have achieved, the harmony that that's had. So often, many people react from a place of chaos, coming back into a center of calm before making any decisions. Big, big shifts on the Wednesday. Lots of opportunities to see things differently on the Thursday. That doesn't mean we have to act straight away. It's the Ace of Wands. So it will be the end of how we've seen things and the new beginning. It will be that new beginnings and the hope for the future. Allowing ourselves to have that. I hear the phrase vision board. Are we vision board? Is that why we're bringing in so many different ideas and lessons and ways to see things? Thursday's an opportunity to really streamline back to the original hope for our own future. Actually, one of the most beautiful things we can do when we're thinking about new beginnings and the hope for our future and our own health and our own well-being is to keep coming back. Is this in alignment with the vision that I have? Am I? So I am an oversharer. But that's the vision that I have for my world. That's the vision that I have for the life that I live, to live it as abundantly and as open as I can. So for me, certain things like boundaries or barriers in the way that I've seen them portrayed at times don't fit my narrative. Doesn't mean I haven't got involved in them though. Doesn't mean I haven't tried them. Really looking at, does your action align with your truest vision? Not only of yours, but the world that you want to create. And it's okay to be different from everybody else's. It's okay to stay on your path and discover your own identity. And again, what abundance really means to you, and acknowledging that you will reach who you need to reach, the more aligned and authentic you are. On the Friday, that's where we have the Justice card. Okay, so really seeing your own reflection here. Really acknowledging how you see yourself, how aligned you are, how in integrity you are with your vision. Where do you need to draw the line? Where do you need to bring forth that justice? And yes, there will be justice collectively, okay? And it may very well be, it is linked to politics, not may very well be, it is linked to politics come Friday. And there is a resignation there that things will not carry on the way that they are. And that's not just from an individual people perspective, but from a collective perspective. So trusting that, that's where it feels like my throat is sore. The amount of times we've continually repeated things because we don't trust the greater plan. We don't trust our connection. We don't trust what is being seen. We don't trust what is being shifted around us because we can't see it. Come the Friday, there is a resignation coming in regards to behaviours that can no longer carry on. They are related to law. I do see certain celebrity figures as well, in that things are to change. Things need to change. Being aware of that collectively, but also looking at what that may mean to us individually as well. So myself feeling into that more political energy may very well be that later on I am called to speak more on these things. How does that feel for me? Really sensing into what is going on, what is being asked to be restored, what is your role in that, and how does that feel to you? Because on the Saturday we have the Page of Pentacles. Yeah, this new beginning's there. It's been gifted, it's been given, it's been an insight. Spiritually, it's been a little creative idea. Physically, by the end of the week, it's almost like a snowball rolling. Okay, it's there, it's growing. How grounded are we? How ready are we? What do we need in the next 3 weeks, 3 months, 3 years? Where do we see ourselves going with that? It's okay to plan. And it feels like, and I can take this on board myself, it feels like many haven't, because of letdowns or because of expectations or because of thinking things were going to go a certain way and they didn't. When we acknowledge that it's okay to plan, we can see that actually all along, perhaps, just perhaps, it's all been part of it. On the Sunday, we have the Four of Wands. On the Sunday, we have that stability in our own spiritual connection. We have that essence of home. Yes, that can be an actual physical home. I, for one, hope that it is. It can be an actual physical home, but it's also the essence of home, the safety of home, what that means to us in our relationships, in our creative endeavors, in what we're trying to hopefully manifest for our future. Does that spur us on? Does it call us to, well, you can see these characters are dancing to their own rhythm. Does that empower us to be who we are? That's shifted. The earth shifts, things change, things shift, we shift as a result. How can we get back to a rhythm that is comfortable for us, a flow that is comfortable to us, a connection that is comfortable for us? Because it's that that's going to make us feel at home regardless where we are. We connect back to the earth, right? We connect back to the original home. Well, that's my view. What would yours be? I'd be intrigued to know, perhaps in the comments or under this video or whatever, what makes you feel safe? Where do you feel most at home? Chances are that's part of what it is you're here to offer. Okay, major arcanas. I think they're all major arcanas. No, they're not. Let's have a look. Right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 major arcana. So it may feel as if it's all being controlled by the world outside. The world is inviting. The world is giving opportunities and potentials. We have 5. That turning point is giving opportunities and potentials to bring forth that change, but it cannot and will not do it for us. Okay, because even if everything in our life shifted and we still had the same perspective or same wounds, then nothing has changed. Okay, so really looking at the deeper things that emotionally we want to shift, taking responsibility for that and watching the world unfold around us as a result. Acknowledging with the wheel we are part of the change, but also feeling into any emotional cycles that brings up. Maybe we don't want that responsibility. Yeah, maybe it's easier to say we have no control over X, Y, and Z. Maybe we have become our own illusion. Maybe we're trying to take our power back by ignoring the fact that it never went and it was always there. What is coming up for you this week that is asking you, encouraging you, for some demanding that you see through any illusions and narratives you have created for yourself and subsequently submerged yourself within? Take time, allow your vision to open up about yourself. You know, we have the Hanged Man, but it is the Christ consciousness as well. Look at your light. Look at what you offer. Let that move you forward. How do you feel? Are you trying to control it, or are you navigated by your emotions? Are your emotions controlling your situation? Are you reacting from purely your emotions? Have you completed whatever needs to shift before you do so? Are you in harmony and in balance before you create something? What do you need in order to do that? And that's the invitation from the universe this week. We then have, I need to wrap it up. We then have 4 minor arcana. So the stability, actually the changes come from external things that may appear out of our control, but the stability comes from our ability to cope with that, from our own connection to our own spirit. So we have here the 3 of Cups, we have 1 Cup card, 2 Wand cards, and a Pentacle card. No Sword cards here, so it's not about getting into our head this week. It's not about not getting into our head either. So don't let our thoughts overtake, but be aware of them and be aware of the impact. They may be hidden. We may feel as if there's no logical sense this week. It's there, but it comes by going into our emotions, looking at what we've created, celebrating that, letting that give us the grounding we need in order to see new beginnings for what they are. A chance to really build on the groundwork that's in place. Doesn't mean we have to tear it all down. Build on what is already in place by acknowledging how far we've come, allowing ourselves to see ourselves differently, celebrating what we have delivered, using that just to take a moment to nurture it and let the hope for that future come in. Again, it's going back to when we have a child or when we create something, there's almost this rush to, what's next, what's next, what's next? Take time. We're not in Beltane yet. We're in spring, okay? We're in renewal. We're in rebirth. Take time to be with anything that's being created. Yes, let plans start to, wiggle their way in, inspire you, entice you perhaps, but take time to be with what you have done and then create from there, not from what you haven't. Okay, 1 card this week for completion of the energies. So we have the Emperor and the Page of Swords. Lots and lots of ideas, lots and lots of potentials, lots and lots of, oh, I could do this, I could do this, I could do this. But the attention isn't on any of them. They're actually leading the way. The attention is on what's already been done, what's already been written. Okay, so taking that moment, letting these ideas give us inspiration. Don't let them control the path. Acknowledge what has been done, but don't get lost in that either. Allowing a new experience for all involved. Underneath that, we have the Emperor taking charge of the game that we may find ourselves playing. We are not pawns in it, okay? We can decide our next move. For the most part, 99.9% of us can decide our next move. Feeding into the responsibility of that doesn't mean we have to do it yet, because we have the 2 of Wands underneath, and it is very much an opportunity to look at what we're giving, why we're giving it, what we expect back, where that has come from, and the impact that that has on taking control of any ideas that we are gifted, any futures that we are hoping for, any new beginnings that we are trying to create. How do we see our potential to actually be able to do it? What do we need first? Take care, and I'll see you next week.